Alright, let's talk about Doom the Dark Ages. First of all, I'm brand new to this franchise. Never played the old Doom games, and definitely have not played Doom Eternal or Doom 2016. So I don't really have any crazy expectations going into it. I just wanted a good action-packed game. So this review is coming from someone completely new to this series, just my honest thoughts after spending a bunch of hours playing this. There's a lot of things I did like during this. There's also a lot that I disliked. Let's break it down, the good, the bad, and whether it is worth your time. Let's start off with what the game does really well, because there's actually a lot here. First off, the game is fast, like very fast. It throws you right into the action and barely lets up. The controls are extremely tight. Movements feel relatively smooth, and once you get into a rhythm, it's genuinely fun to keep dodging, parrying, and just blasting through the demons. The storytelling also surprised me. I was just expecting a non-stop action shooter with no context added to the story, but there's actually a decent amount of lore here. It's not super deep, but adds just enough to make the world feel interesting. I liked learning about the settings, the characters, especially between the fights. It made it feel less like an arena shooter. The visuals are wild, in a good way of course. The graphics look amazing, and the color design especially stands out to me. There's a mix of dark fantasy and sci-fi that just really works for this game design, and some of the areas you explore are straight up beautiful on how they are crafted. The voice acting, surprisingly solid. No cheesy lines, no over-the-top characters, just believable performances that fit the tone of the story. It helps sell the world and the atmosphere without getting in the way. The music is exactly what it needs to be, heavy, aggressive, and intense. It gets you hyped when action ramps up, but knows when to take a step back during exploration and story scenes, of course. It feels like it's part of the experience, not just background noise. Cutscenes are another highlight of this game. I didn't expect much from cutscenes from a first-person shooter, but these are genuinely cool. They feel like a rewarding moment, like watch this.
Novik, the Slayer is en route.
Assault mode engaged. Like, you can't deny that was badass. These cutscenes are well directed, full of energy, and they actually make you want to pay attention. The difficulty options were great. What's cool is that you can actually adjust not just the difficulty, but how much damage you take and how much damage you deal. That kind of customization is perfect for me, especially for someone new to the Doom franchise, because you can find a setup that feels challenging without being overly frustrating. Then let's talk about enemy designs. They look amazing. Even though I'll talk about some problems later with variety, the individual enemies you'll face look really nice. Some of them are terrifying in their own ways, but you can definitely tell it took a lot of time and effort in design. There's also a ton of detail in the environment. It's not just hallways, arenas. There's all places you can explore, secrets to find, side paths you can take. That makes each level feel more open. It rewards you for slowing down every once in a while. Weapon variety is a big plus too. You get a bunch of different tools to play with, and they're all satisfying to use, whether it's a shotgun, a rocket launcher, or something way more intense. They each have a purpose and feel distinct. Blasting enemies with different weapons keeps the combat from getting stale, and switching between them mid-fight actually feels natural once you get into the flow. And finally, the mech and flying combat. Yeah, I didn't expect that either. Those parts switch things up completely and add some cool variety to the flow of the game. It didn't feel like a gimmick. It actually fun and breaks up the regular gameplay in a smart way. Okay, so Doom the Dark Ages isn't perfect though, and it definitely has some issues that held me back from fully enjoying the experience. The biggest problem, the lack of enemy diversity. It feels like you're fighting the same handful of enemies over and over and over again. Even while the game tries to spice things up, it often just reuses bosses as normal mobs. That made some fights feel repetitive and less exciting than they really should be. And on top of that repetitiveness, the game leans way too hard on slapping armor on enemies to boost difficulty. Like, can you tell me the difference between this enemy and that enemy? No, of course you can't. Because all they did was slap armor on it instead of introducing new enemies or smarter tactics. They just put armor on everything. It kind of feels like a lazy way to make the game harder without actually improving the combat system. And then there's the freezing issue. This one was super frustrating for me. Before the patch that was supposed to come out to fix it, I've already beaten the game. This freezing happens every 10 to 15 minutes for me, completely breaking my immersion. Sometimes I couldn't even force quit the game through Task Manager and needed to restart my computer. That's a huge problem, because it just kills the flow for me and makes it impossible to play long sessions without interruption. These problems really hurt what could have been a much stronger experience. You can tell this game has a lot of potential, but these technical problems are just holding it back. So after spending quite a bit of time with Doom: The Dark Ages, here's where I land. This game is definitely a lot of fun. The fast gameplay, the crazy visuals, the heavy music, and those intense cutscenes all come together for a solid, satisfying experience. It's got style, it's got energy, and it knows how to keep you on your toes. But it has its flaws. The repetitive enemies, heavy-handed difficulty boost with armor, and the freezing issue before the patch really dragged it down. Before that, I wouldn't really call it a masterpiece. For me, Doom: The Dark Ages is a 7 out of 10. A good game with plenty to enjoy, but has some clear issues that hold it back from being great.